My mother was critically ill, but my boyfriend insisted on holding a wedding with his childhood sweetheart to fulfill her mother's dying wish. In my previous life, I begged him to stay, and as a result, his childhood sweetheart's mother fell into depression and passed away. Because of this, he resented me for a lifetime. He even removed my oxygen mask when I had a heart attack. Reborn into this life, I sensibly let my boyfriend go ahead with the wedding and sincerely offered them my blessings. I even gave his childhood sweetheart the engagement ring and wedding dress he had once prepared for me and personally did her makeup, as her mother happily urged them to consummate the marriage. I dialed my father's number. Dad, I've made up my mind. I'm returning to Beijing next week to take over your hospital. Chapter 1. Dragging my exhausted body home. I was greeted by the sounds of passionate lovemaking echoing from the bedroom. I froze in my tracks. But despite myself, my gaze drifted to the narrow gap in the doorway. On the red wedding bed, Sam was pressing down on Roma, kissing her feverishly as she melted beneath him. I forced down the fury surging in my chest and turned toward the balcony. I never expected that. Even after reliving this life, I would witness the same scene again, and it was just as sickening. After a long while, the sounds of pleasure ceased, replaced by the commotion of movement in the living room. Sam's eyes widened in surprise when he saw me at home, while behind him, his childhood sweetheart, Roma, fumbled to button up her clothes. Selena, when did you get back? A flicker of guilt flashed through his gaze. Just got back from the hospital. I was taking care of my mom and came home to collect the laundry. Sam let out a quiet sigh of relief. Then, he grabbed Roma's hand and hurriedly explained. Selena, Roma's mother is critically ill and only has a few days left. Her biggest wish is to see Roma and me married. I have to help her fulfill that wish. She came over today so we could discuss the details. How about this? You take care of your mom for the next few days, and after I finish with the wedding, I'll come visit you both. Hearing Sam repeat the exact same words as in my previous life, I couldn't help but laugh helplessly. In that past life, I had begged and pleaded for him to stay. With my and Sam's dedicated care, my mother, who was initially given only 3 days to live due to terminal cancer, miraculously survived for more than a month. But Roma's mother? She passed away within a week. Because of this, Roma fell into deep depression, and Sam never let me forget it, ridiculing and resenting me for years. And when I suffered a sudden heart attack in my 50s, he mercilessly tore off my oxygen mask. With a vicious sneer, he had whispered in my ear, "This is what you owe Roma. If this lifetime isn't enough, you can repay it in the next one." The memory sent a violent shiver down my spine. I couldn't believe that this handsome, soft-featured man before me would one day become my murderer. Noticing my silence, Sam grew impatient. Selena, can you not be so cold-blooded? You have a mother too. Would you really want her to leave this world with regrets? I already asked the doctor. Your mother only has a common cold. She just needs a few days of rest. There's no need for such a big fuss and a hospital stay. I looked at Sam indifferently, finally taking in his appearance properly. He was dressed formally today, wearing the same suit he had worn when he first met my mother. And now, he was wearing it again, just to meet another woman's parents. I had once treated him as my one and only, never realizing that I was just another disposable piece in the game he played with ease. Smiling faintly, I stepped forward and adjusted his collar. It's fine, go ahead. You'll be late if you keep stalling. Then, I turned to Roma and said with a pleasant smile, "Send my regards to your mother, and congratulations to both of you on your wedding." Roma, as if she had been waiting for these words, smiled smugly. But Sam? He panicked. No, Selena, listen to me. Roma and I are just pretending. Nothing is actually happening between us. The only person I'll marry is you. I waved my hand impatiently but kept my smile intact. Go on. It was only when he was sure I wasn't angry that he turned and left. Chapter 2. I could no longer stay in that house, so I returned to the hospital. The moment I pushed open the door to my mother's ward, I saw her eyes brimming with tears. Panic surged through me, and I rushed to her bedside. "Mom, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" She shook her head and wiped away her tears. "I just can't stop thinking about how you'll be all alone in the future. It makes my heart ache." "Mom, Don't say that. You're going to be fine. But she cut me off. Selena, I have one last wish. You may not like what I'm about to say, but I need to say it. My heart trembled violently. This was something she had never said in my past life. The next second, she continued. I may have had a failed marriage, but I've always been a good judge of character. Sam is not the man who will bring you happiness. If he could abandon you during the hardest moments of your mother's life, then one day, when you are at your weakest, he will do the same. Hearing her words, the tears I had been holding back for so long finally burst free. So, Mom had known everything all along. I grasped her hand tightly and choked out a promise. Mom, I swear, in this life, and the next, I will never be with him. 3 days later, my mother took her last breath beneath a breathtaking sunset. During those 3 days, Sam never contacted me, but his social media was updated constantly. There were cheerful photos of him meeting Roma's parents, selfies of them holding hands while shopping, and even a proposal scene. He had posted more in those few days than he had in our entire 3-year relationship. After handling my mother's funeral, I returned home to pack my things. The moment I stepped through the door, I was met with the sight of Sam and Roma's family raising their glasses in celebration. As soon as I entered, the entire room fell silent, and every pair of eyes turned toward me. The not-so-spacious living room had 2 tables set up for a banquet. The framed photos on the walls, ones that had once belonged to me and Sam, had been replaced. In their place were wedding portraits of Sam and Roma. The two of them stared lovingly at each other in the picture, radiating deep affection. In just a few short days, they had even taken wedding photos. Roma's mother was the first to break the silence, looking at me with suspicion. Who are you, and why do you have a key to Sam's house? I remained silent, waiting for Sam to explain. Sure enough, he immediately responded. Oh, she's my cousin, Selena. She just got back from a business trip. Right, Selena? I nodded and said calmly, carry on. Before heading straight to my room, before I could take another step, Roma's mother's mocking voice drifted over. I'm just saying, Sam, now that you and Roma are married, this house belongs to both of you. It wouldn't be appropriate to let your cousin keep staying here, don't you think? You should make it clear to her. Tell her to move out of your marital home. She's not a child anymore, yet she's still freeloading at her cousin's place. Doesn't she have any shame? I was about to retort when Sam spoke up first. Don't worry, Mom. I'll talk to Selena properly. Mom. It had only been a few days, and he was already calling someone else Mom. I turned my head slightly. Roma's mother was sipping red wine as she chatted, her face glowing with satisfaction, her brows lifted in joy. She looked nothing like someone who had been on the brink of death, but I couldn't be bothered to investigate further. Chapter 3. Amid the cheerful laughter and chatter, I took out my phone and dialed my father's number in Beijing. His assistant picked up. The director is currently performing a very important surgery, she informed me. I let out a small, bitter smile. Then please tell him I've made up my mind. I'll be returning to Beijing next week to take over the hospital. There was a stunned silence on the other end before the assistant's voice trembled with excitement. Understood, Miss. The director has been waiting for you to come back. Hanging up, I turned and walked to my bedroom to start packing. But the moment I opened the door, my eyes were met with a sight that stabbed me straight through the heart. Scattered carelessly across the bed was a dress, my wedding gown. It was the one Sam had personally chosen for me, a niche yet exquisitely crafted brand, with only 100 pieces available nationwide. Sam had stayed up an entire night just to secure it. He had once told me this wedding dress was perfect for me, bold yet understated, elegant yet sensual. And now? It lay there, wrinkled and discarded, like a piece of trash, clearly worn by someone else. Before I could fully process the scene, Sam pushed open the door and entered, his face full of guilt. Selena, Roma didn't have a wedding dress, and we were short on time. So, before he could finish, a panicked voice cut in. I'm sorry, Selena. It was my idea to borrow your dress. This has nothing to do with Sam. Roma rushed in, flustered, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. My mother is terminally ill. Her dying wish was for me to marry a good man, but I'm just not good enough. No man would ever want me. I had no choice but to. Her voice trembled as tears spilled down her cheeks, and as she wept, she also conveniently placed a hand over her chest, just enough to flaunt the sparkling diamond ring on her finger. My engagement ring. At the sight of her crying, Sam's heart instantly melted. He reached out and held Roma protectively. Roma, don't ever say that about yourself. Who said you're not good enough? You're the most amazing girl in the world. Any man who fails to see your worth is a fool. Anyone who marries you should treat you like a treasure. Hearing Sam's comforting words, Roma's sobs finally quieted. Really? Sam? Of course it's true. When have I ever lied to you? Hearing his reassurance, Roma lifted her head slightly and cast me a smug glance. Only then did Sam seem to remember that I was still in the room. His guilt from earlier had completely vanished, replaced by an air of entitlement. With an almost condescending tone, he declared, Selena, you've seen it yourself, Roma's situation is special. I hope you can be understanding. As for the wedding dress, I cut him off before he could continue. The dress and the ring, I don't want them anymore. Since Roma likes them so much, she can have them. After packing my belongings, I turned to the wall where Sam and I had once displayed our photos together. Sam had never been fond of taking pictures. In almost every photo, his expression was stiff, barely managing a polite smile. At the time, I thought he simply wasn't used to being photographed. But looking at them now, I realized he had only been tolerating it. Yet, in his photos with Roma, he smiled so effortlessly, so genuinely happy. Chapter 4. Halfway through clearing out the photos, Sam walked in. The moment he saw the crumpled pictures tossed into the trash, his expression turned frantic, and he rushed over. Selena, what are you doing? Didn't I tell you that Roma and I are just pretending? I responded calmly, my words perfectly reasonable. Your act isn't over yet. If I keep staying here, Roma's mother will start getting suspicious. I'll clear these photos for now and stay in a hotel for a few days. Seeing how composed and understanding I was, a flicker of emotion flashed across Sam's face, a mix of gratitude and unease. Selena, is that really what you think? You're really not angry at me? I forced a small, bitter smile. At this point, did it even matter whether I was angry or not? In my past life, the moment I showed the slightest hint of jealousy, Sam would snap at me, calling me unreasonable. He always said that childhood friends naturally had a closer bond than regular friends and that I was being petty for making a fuss. But in this life, I couldn't even be bothered to argue with him anymore. So, I smiled and nodded. I'm really not angry. Only then did Sam finally exhale in relief, feeling much better. He even suggested, by the way, has your mom been discharged yet? Once this wedding is over, I'll come with you to visit her. Didn't she always want to try Michelin-starred food? Let's take her next time. If he hadn't mentioned it, I might have been able to keep my composure. But the moment those words left his mouth, my heart plunged into an icy abyss. I replied coldly, there's no need. My mother would never get to taste the flavors of this world again. 2 days later was Sam and Roma's wedding, set in the most luxurious hotel in the city. In my past life, this was the same hotel where Sam and I got married. But during that wedding, his face was ice cold the entire time. And when the MC asked him to give a speech, he used the opportunity to publicly mourn Roma's deceased mother, apologizing for letting her down. That wedding had been dull and joyless, feeling more like a funeral than a celebration. But in this life, the grandness of the wedding was directly proportional to the number of guests. They had even booked the finest honeymoon suite in the hotel. The day before the wedding, Sam repeatedly emphasized to me, this is just to put Roma's mother at ease. But as I sat in the suite, helping Roma with her makeup, I noticed something sitting on the nightstand, a blue box of condoms. The box was already open. Maybe, in order to make their act convincing, they even went the extra mile. At this level of dedication, it would be a crime if they didn't win an Oscar. The wedding lasted until nearly 10 o'clock. As it neared the end, the traditional wedding games began. Each region had different customs for the bridal chamber games, and according to Roma's hometown tradition, The groom had to carry the bride through a series of obstacles before finally reaching the bridal suite. The crowd cheered excitedly, urging them to start with a kiss. Chapter 5. For some reason, Sam's gaze suddenly drifted toward me. As just another ordinary guest in the crowd, I responded with a calm, indifferent smile. At that moment, my phone rang. I took it out and glanced at the screen. It was my father. Just as I answered the call, Roma seized the opportunity and planted a quick kiss on the corner of Sam's lips. Then, with an air of shyness, she lowered her head. From the other end of the line, my father's voice came through. Selena, can you return to Beijing earlier? Work has been hectic lately. I'd prefer if you came back as soon as possible. I had long grown used to his way of speaking, straight to the point, with no small talk. My mother had once said that my father was too cold, a machine devoted only to work, which was why she divorced him. Even in my mother's final moments, he had been busy saving someone else's life. I sighed. Sometimes, I thought that living like my father, unaffected by love, untouched by emotions, wasn't such a bad thing. I replied simply, all right. Then, without sparing a glance at Sam still caught up in the wedding festivities, I turned and left the venue, heading straight back to my hotel. The first thing I did upon returning was book a flight for the next day. After tomorrow, I would sever all ties with this place. And in my heart, I silently vowed I would never return here again. But the next morning, I was rudely awakened by loud, aggressive knocking on my door. When I opened it, there stood Sam, and behind him, Roma. I frowned as Sam barged in without a word, carrying several large gift bags. He seemed to be in a good mood, speaking to me with unusual enthusiasm. Selena, hurry up and freshen up. Let's go visit Mom together. Roma prepared all these gifts. She feels guilty and wants to apologize to your mother in person. I let out a cold chuckle as I glanced at the pile of gifts. My mother had already been laid to rest. At this point, I had no desire to keep up the charade, so I said it plainly. Sam, my mother is gone. The moment the words left my mouth, Roma's eyes instantly turned red. Selena, I know you're upset about Sam and me getting married, but you shouldn't take it out on your mother's name. Sam said she was just hospitalized with a cold. How could such a minor illness be fatal? Stop saying such things. Hearing her words, Sam's face darkened as well. Selena, what's that supposed to mean? Roma is just trying to be considerate, but you're twisting her words and making this difficult. I already told you, there's nothing between Roma and me. You saw the wedding yourself. It was all for show. What more do you want? Listening to the two of them putting on their little performance together, I finally snapped. Sam, are you even human? I told you long ago that my mother was in the final stages of cancer. But you never listened. You were too busy serving Roma's mother. A disgusting man like you isn't worthy of meeting my mother. Get the hell out! I shoved him forcefully, trying to push him out the door. But before I could process what was happening, Roma's mother appeared at the doorway. She was still wearing the same red cheapao from last night's wedding, her hair and makeup freshly done. Stepping inside with a bright smile, she grabbed my hand and spoke in an exaggeratedly gentle tone. "Aw, Sam's cousin. I know you're upset that he was too busy with the wedding to take care of your family matters. How about this? Let's all go visit your mother together. We can even bring some gifts as a sign of respect. What do you think?" With her perfectly composed demeanor, she made me look like the unreasonable, petty troublemaker. I lifted my gaze toward Sam, whose expression was filled with guilt and discomfort. Then, I smiled and said, "Sure, let's go." Chapter 6. We all got into Sam's car. As he reached for my hand, about to gesture for me to take the passenger seat, Roma's mother pulled me into the back seat instead. Sam started the engine. I silently took out my phone and sent him a location pin. He glanced at it briefly before scoffing confidently. "Selena, I could drive to your mom's place with my eyes closed. Do you really not trust me?" I cut him off. "Look carefully at the location I sent you." Sam's expression flickered with mild impatience, but he still pulled out his phone. However, the moment he saw the address, his face twisted in anger and disbelief. "Selena, what the hell is this? You want me to drive to the cemetery? Just to piss me off? You're cursing your own mother?" I couldn't even be bothered to argue. I simply repeated myself. Drive to the location. He let out a mocking laugh, full of sarcasm. But the moment we arrived at my mother's grave, his smirk vanished. His eyes widened in utter disbelief. Then, as if all the strength drained from his body, he collapsed onto his knees. Sam stared at the headstone, his gaze locked on my mother's photo. His voice trembled with shock. "Selena, what is this? This is a joke, right? She just had a cold, how could?" Watching his delayed, worthless regret, I felt nothing. No sadness, no anger, just emptiness. I didn't bother explaining. Instead, I tossed my mother's medical report at him. "Sam, joke about anything you want, but I would never joke about my mother." I took a deep breath, then finally spoke the words I had been holding in for far too long. "Let's break up. You don't deserve to be here." Standing before my mother's grave, I cut my last tie to him. "Mom, you see? I did it. Breaking up isn't that hard after all. This time, I'll never go back to Sam." Sam clutched the report, staring at it for a long time, his entire body stiff. Then, suddenly, he snapped. "No, no way. This isn't possible." In a burst of desperation, he shot to his feet and grabbed my shoulders, gripping me tightly. Sam's fingernails dug into my skin, his grip tightening until pain shot through my arms. But what came out of his mouth next was even more shocking. "Are you mad about my fake wedding with Roma? Is that why you neglected your mom? Selena, how could you do this to her? If you're angry, take it out on me. Why take it out on your mother?" I shoved him away with all my strength. "Are you insane? That was my mother. No matter how angry I was, I would never take it out on her. But you abandoned us when my mom needed you the most, just so you could marry your precious childhood sweetheart. I guess. No matter what, I could never compare to her in your heart." I didn't wait for his response. I turned away and gently placed the flowers I had prepared beside my mother's grave. Sam opened his mouth as if to say something, but in the end, not a single word came out. Truthfully, anyone with eyes could see the truth. Roma's mother had faked her illness, rushing Sam into marrying her daughter. And yet, the one who had truly been suffering, the one who had actually died, was my mother. The only solace I had was that, before she passed, I had spent time with her, talking for hours. She had told me that her final wishes weren't just for me to break up with Sam. She had one more wish. "Your father may be a terrible husband, but in his work, he's reliable. If you follow him, your career will flourish." After paying my respects to my mother, I was ready to head to the airport. I had no interest in arguing with Sam any longer. I wouldn't let him disrupt my mother's peace. Just as Sam opened his mouth to speak, his phone suddenly rang. Roma's tearful, fragile voice came through the speaker, piercingly sharp. "Sam, I don't know what happened. My mom suddenly fainted. The signal here is terrible, and I can't call an ambulance. Are you still with Selena visiting her mother? It's okay. Don't worry about me. I was so scared. So I called you." The moment Roma's words reached Sam's ears, he panicked. "Roma, don't worry. I'm done here. I'll come find you right now." He hung up in a hurry and turned to me. "Roma's mom just fainted. It's an emergency. You take a cab home first. We'll talk about our situation later when I get back." I responded with a simple, indifferent hum. By the time I looked up again, Sam was already gone. I picked up the gifts Sam and Roma had brought me and tossed all of them into the trash. Then, I took out my phone and booked a ride to the airport. No signal? Couldn't call an ambulance? Lies. Only a love-blinded fool like Sam would believe something so ridiculous. No matter what Roma said, Sam would always believe her without hesitation. Since that's what he wants, fine. I won't stand in the way of their beautiful love anymore. Upon arriving at the airport, I deleted and blocked every way to contact Sam. Then, I removed my SIM card, snapped it in half, and tossed it away. With everything settled, I boarded my flight to Beijing, leaving that place, and him, behind for good. Chapter 7. 3 hours later, my flight landed at Beijing International Airport. As I reached the exit, I spotted a tall man in the distance, his hair streaked with gray, yet still exuding an air of authority. But the moment his gaze fell on me, his stern expression softened into warmth. Selena. Hearing my father call my name, my eyes instantly welled up. After 3 years apart, standing before him now, I was surprised by how calm I felt. Maybe it was because of everything that had happened with my mother. It had made me indifferent to many things in life. In my past life, even when my mother had miraculously lived for an extra month, my father was still absent. He only showed up late to the funeral, arriving just in time to see her eyes closed forever. Sometimes, I wondered, had he ever truly loved her? Lost in thought, I was pulled back to reality by his familiar voice. The same words he had said in my previous life. Selena, not making it in time to see your mother one last time, that was my fault. But the hospital was too busy, I couldn't leave. I raised a hand, cutting him off, pretending to be understanding. Dad, you don't have to explain. I already know. Over the years, my father had never been an emotional man. What he couldn't give me in love, he tried to compensate for with this hospital. He had built it up so that one day, I could inherit it. That was his way of being a father. But instead of looking relieved at my words, his expression became tinged with guilt. Selena, work is important, but I hope you understand one thing, work is only a part of life. I raised an eyebrow, surprised. Since when did he start thinking like this? But before I could ask, he suddenly took out his phone and made a call, murmuring something on the other end. 5 minutes later, there was a polite, restrained knock at the door. My father said, "Come in." And then, a man wearing gold-rimmed glasses and a white coat stepped inside. The moment I saw his face, I froze for a second. It was someone I had only met a few times in childhood, Bruno. Bruno had been my father's protégé since a very young age, dedicating himself wholeheartedly to medicine under my father's guidance. From what I remembered, he was just like my father, always serious, rarely smiling, and constantly talking about medical theories and procedures. But the stern, no-nonsense boy I once knew had now grown into a tall, handsome man. My father introduced him with a rare note of pride in his voice. Selena, this is Bruno, my most promising student. Someone I've trained personally since he was young. If you have any difficulties at work, you can count on him for support. Just as I was about to respond, my father suddenly leaned in and whispered in my ear, Bruno is a great guy. This is as much as I'll help you, seize the opportunity yourself. I let out a wry smile. I had just walked away from a failed relationship. I had no energy to think about love. Instead, I simply nodded politely at Bruno, offering a small smile as a greeting. But unlike the rigid, reserved boy I remembered from childhood, Bruno smiled back, light, effortless, like a gentle breeze. It's been a long time. Selena. Chapter 8. Back in Shenzhen, I had already established myself as a leading OBGYN at the city's top hospital. Now, stepping into an even bigger role, inheriting my father's hospital in Beijing, the pressure was inevitable. Luckily, my father and Bruno were by my side, and the hospital was filled with top-tier professionals. Everyone focused on their respective duties, too busy with their work to indulge in gossip. However, there was one exception, Bruno. People were undeniably curious about him, after all. He was both brilliant and undeniably handsome. Too bad the famous Dr. Pei always kept a cold, distant expression, making it nearly impossible for anyone to approach him. Even though Bruno and I worked together often, our conversations were strictly about work. Even my father started getting impatient. More than once, he pulled me aside for a heart-to-heart talk about Bruno. Selena, you should make more of an effort to connect with Bruno. I rolled my eyes. Dad, I just want to focus on my career. Can you stop interfering? But my father looked at me with sheer disappointment, as if I was throwing my future away. This is exactly why your mother divorced me. I refuse to let you repeat my mistakes. Just then, the door opened. Bruno had just arrived and, by pure coincidence, had overheard my father's words. For the first time, his usually impassive face showed a hint of amusement. Lately, Bruno had been texting me in private. Without exception, Every message was an invitation to have dinner or grab a drink, and without exception, I had rejected every single one. I knew this was all my father's doing. Someone like Bruno, reserved, composed, with a near-monastic self-discipline, ***, couldn't possibly be interested in romantic relationships. Just like me. Chapter 9. Life slowly settled into a steady rhythm, and I was finally getting back on track with my work. Just when I thought I had completely erased Sam from my mind, he showed up. I had no idea how he even found this place. At that moment, I was in a meeting with the hospital's department heads. The conference room doors suddenly burst open. Sam's eyes immediately landed on me, sitting at the center of the room. His face lit up with joy. "Selena, I finally found you." I pressed my fingers against my temple, sighing in exasperation. I stood up, intending to tell him to leave immediately, but he was too overwhelmed by excitement. Running straight toward me, the hospital staff exchanged curious glances, wondering who this intruder was. I impatiently pushed him away, wanting nothing more than to throw him out. But Sam grabbed my hand, pulled out a ring box, and tried to put a ring on my finger. It was the same ring Roma had worn. "Selena, why did you leave without saying a word? Do you know how hard I've been searching for you? I went to the hospital and learned the truth. I was wrong. I shouldn't have abandoned you and your mother. Selena, I got the ring back. Let's start over. Marry me, okay?" Listening to his relentless pleading, I felt nothing, not a shred of emotion, only pure disgust. I shoved him away, looking at him like a complete stranger. "Security, get this troublemaker out of here." Hearing my command, the security guards stationed at the door rushed over. Realizing I wasn't going to forgive him, Sam suddenly dropped to his knees with a loud thud. Gasps filled the hallway as passers-by stopped to watch. "Selena, what do I have to do for you to forgive me? I already told Roma I won't marry her, no matter how much her mother forces me. I refuse. If you don't believe me, I'll show you our chat history." He pulled out his phone, desperately scrolling through messages. The security guards finally reached him, grabbing his arms to drag him away. But Sam snapped. With one powerful punch, he knocked a guard down. In just a few moves, he overpowered the others as well. Then he turned back to me, eyes wild, and grabbed my arm, trying to drag me away. Just as panic surged inside me, a hand shot out from the side, forcefully knocking Sam's grip away. I stumbled backward, falling into the embrace of a strong, steady presence. Chapter 10. I looked up and met Bruno's gaze. His expression remained calm and composed, but his grip on my shoulders was firm, his fingers lightly tapping, a silent reassurance. Then, his voice rang out, cold and authoritative. "Who are you? You're disrupting the hospital's operations and interfering with our director's meeting. I'll call the police right now and have you removed." Seeing Bruno's protective stance around me, Sam's face twisted in rage. "What does this have to do with you? I'm talking to my girlfriend. Get the hell out of the way." I snapped back at him. "Sam, we broke up. Stop harassing me." Before I could react, my world spun. Bruno suddenly moved me aside, and in the same instant, he kicked Sam away. The impact sent Sam stumbling back. Then, before I could even process what was happening, Bruno pulled me into his arms and pressed a kiss against my forehead. The entire room fell into stunned silence. Even I was in complete shock. No one had expected Bruno, so cold, so restrained, to do something like this. After a brief moment, he finally released me. His deep voice carried a distinct edge of anger. "Selena is my girlfriend. If you have anything to say, say it to me first. I heard you're her ex. Causing a public scene at a hospital? Harassing her? That's a disgraceful way to act as an ex. Don't you think?" Maybe it was the sheer humiliation of the situation, or maybe it was Bruno's overwhelming presence, but Sam's confidence crumbled. He muttered something under his breath before turning on his heel and fleeing. Before leaving, however, he shoved the ring into my hands. His voice dropped to a low, eerie whisper by my ear. "Selena, as long as I haven't said the words we're over, we are not over." I didn't even hesitate. I threw the ring away and immediately issued an order banning Sam from ever stepping foot in this hospital again. But I had underestimated him, because Sam's obsession was far worse than I had imagined. Chapter 11. Not long after, I received a message from Sam. It was a photo. The moment I opened it, I nearly passed out from shock. Sam had gone to the cemetery. He had taken my mother's ashes. Sam, what the hell do you think you're doing? His reply came instantly. Selena, just meet with me. Let's talk properly. I promise I won't do anything reckless. The meeting place was his home. I immediately took a leave of absence from the hospital, booked the next flight back to Shenzhen, and left that same night. In my heart, I had already made a decision. I was taking my mother's ashes back to Beijing. Even though she never liked that city, I believed she would understand my choice. I didn't tell anyone. I would handle this alone. Sam hadn't moved. He was still living in the same house. Once, it had been meant to be our home. When I arrived, I was stunned. Everything was exactly as I left it. The red wedding bed was still there. The walls still held photos of us together. But as I looked at it all, I felt nothing. Maybe this is what it means to stop loving someone. Sam had prepared a table full of food. He gestured for me to sit and eat. I had no appetite. Instead, I got straight to the point. Sam, return my mother's ashes. But Sam didn't react. Instead, he calmly placed food onto my plate, as if nothing had happened. Selena, if you won't even share a meal with me, how are we supposed to talk properly? I clenched my teeth, swallowing my anger, and silently picked up my chopsticks. Sam had somehow stolen my mother's ashes from the cemetery. As I sat there, my eyes scanned the room, searching for possible hiding spots. Sam noticed my intent. Selena, as long as you agree not to break up with me, I'll return your mother's ashes. I almost laughed out of sheer rage. Sam, do you even hear yourself? You think threats like this will fix anything? The moment I came back from the hospital that day and saw you and Roma screwing on our wedding bed, we were already over. Sam's eyes widened in shock. You knew? I let out a cold scoff, but Sam quickly switched to a remorseful expression. Selena, that was an accident. I admit I made a mistake. I swear it won't happen again. Please, forgive me. No, a cheating man doesn't stop at once. He cheats as many times as he can get away with. I had no patience left. I immediately started searching for my mother's ashes. Sam panicked, rushing over to stop me. In the chaos, bottles, vases, and furniture crashed to the floor. As I rummaged through the room, something caught my eye under the sofa, a familiar jar. The intricate patterns on it. It was the same urn that held my mother's ashes. Heart pounding, I reached out and grabbed it. Sam lunged forward, trying to snatch it from my hands. I had never been as strong as him. But at that moment, fury coursed through my veins. This was my mother, and I would not let him take her from me. I screamed at Sam, clutching the urn tightly as I shoved him away with all my strength. He stumbled backward, crashing into the dining table. With a loud smash, plates and bowls shattered on the floor. Soup splattered across the room, leaving behind a chaotic mess. I held the urn close to my chest and ran for the door. But just as I opened it, Sam tackled me from behind. I hit the floor hard, and the urn in my arms slammed against the ground with a deafening shatter. Terror gripped my chest. I immediately looked down, only to see dirt spilling out from the broken pieces. Not ashes, just soil. I had been tricked. My mother's ashes. Where were they? The moment I arrived from my flight, I had gone straight to the cemetery. That was when I discovered that her ashes had been switched. The staff was still investigating. The security cameras had conveniently malfunctioned. No evidence, but I knew. It was Sam. A deep chill ran through me. This man was far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. After everything I had been through in my past life, I should have been more careful. I turned to face him, fury burning through my veins. Sam, give me back my mother's ashes, or I swear I'll call the police. But instead of fear, Sam laughed. A slow, calm, chilling laugh. Selena, is that how you ask for a favor? Let me give you some advice. Come home and be a good wife to me. Otherwise, you'll never see your mother again, even in death. I stared at him, my vision blurring with tears. How had I ever loved this man? Once, he had been gentle, considerate, and warm, but now, Chapter 12, with an expressionless face, I pulled out my phone and dialed 110. Sam lunged at me, trying to snatch my phone away, but this time, I didn't back down. We struggled, pushing and pulling at each other. Just then, a group of police officers rushed in, separating us. Before I could process what was happening, Sam was handcuffed. I stared in shock. I hadn't even finished calling the police. How did they arrive so quickly? Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted Bruno. At the police station, I finally learned the truth. Bruno had been the one to call the cops. It turned out he had secretly followed me. He had seen Sam before, and when he learned I was going to meet him, he worried something might happen. So, he quietly followed me, keeping a protective distance. When he heard the sounds of breaking objects from upstairs, Bruno immediately called the police. Thanks to Sam's confession, the police finally found my mother's ashes. They had been hidden in a small wooded area near the cemetery. Holding the urn tightly in my arms, I broke down in tears. That same day, I arranged to take her ashes back to Beijing. With everything settled, Sam was sentenced to 3 years in prison for theft and desecration of remains. Later, I heard that Roma's mother, devastated by Sam's lies, fell into depression and passed away shortly after. Roma, in turn, grew to hate Sam. When she found out he was in prison, she believed it was the punishment he deserved. As for me, I never visited Sam, and I never would. This lifetime, I wanted nothing to do with him ever again. But surprisingly, because of this entire incident, something changed between Bruno and me. Hospital colleagues began whispering about us, wondering if we were becoming something more. After everything I had been through, I no longer felt the need to avoid things. Instead of shutting people out, maybe it was better to welcome new experiences. If something happened between Bruno and me, great. And if not, at least we could be friends. So, for the first time, I took the initiative. I sent Bruno a message. Are you free after work tonight? Let's have dinner together.